washing powder to your doorstep by just pressing that button, right? Yeah. So you can use this device. Let's say that when you ran out of your shampoo or you see your shampoo, so you can put in the bathroom, press that button, and Tesco will ship the foreign day to your doorstep. So these are the Internet of Things that people are just. So the hardware alone, there's not much money inside it, but the service is where it will generate the business, right? And then the software is quite important. So it's not so much about the hardware, but to integrate those devices together with the software. So anything that can be measured or connected or controlled is IoT. That is the simple definition of IoT. So what enables this IoT? One is the Industrial 4.0 and second is the Computing 4.0. The Industrial 4.0, you can see that we are moving into intelligent production. Right? That's what we call the Industrial 4.0. And then the Computing 4.0, on the vertical axis, these are the units sold, and then the horizontal axis is the unit price. In the old days, the mainframe and so on, the units sold are not that many. It ranged in a million, and it cost maybe $10,000. As you go further, you can see that it's now maybe like around $10, but it's selling like 10 billion units. So that's why there's an economy of scale there. There's a volume, but of course it's cheaper, but there's a volume. So I just look. So what do we foresee in future? The hardware available on the IoT, on the PC is CPU, on the mobile is SoC, and on IoT we say it's a computer on chip. The hardware equivalent currently on the PC is Intel. The mobile, of course, Apple. Most people have this iPhone. The IoT is too early to tell, because we do not know which one will win. Software enabler is either the Android or the iOS. The current incumbent is Microsoft, Apple, Google, and we think either Google or Apple or both. Unit volume, you can see 30 billion, price point around $10, the IoT. So it's very, very cheap in terms of the hardware, but in terms of the service and the software, that's where the money. So you can see that the mostly off computing, that means that use very, very little power. Look at this device. This is the US coin, the 1 cent US coin. And look at this device, the N-size radio, very, very small as compared to the. And the world's smallest computer, look at that. And the maps and the sensing, like we mentioned before in our vehicle, the tires and so on, that monitor. And then look at this, the computer on chip is already available in the market. It's already shipping. And the bill of material, the total silicon bill of material is less than $30. And this is the entire computer on a single chip. That big. It's not the microprocessor alone. The entire computer is in that small to make us very mobile. And just now we saw it's mostly off. That means less power. This is mostly on. That means you need power. Of course, we see that it's very critical for the data centers because it collects all this information, the CPU, because you need the data to process. For example, that how Amazon knows that where to ship to you when you ask for that, when you press that button, that you want shampoo or you want anything, or how the Tesco knows. So you need all these data centers. So there's a lot of very highly demand in terms of the network, the storage, and also the compute power. Because you do not want that you have to, press and then wait for days, to compute. So you want very instant. Let's go quickly. So we are now riding on the fourth wave of the computing. So that's on IoT. So there's a lot of application you can think of, like I mentioned earlier on, when you go to see your doctors and so on, right? You can have this device, the doctor will know. Or in our workplace, we have BASH and so on. Let's say during the emergency response, when you have to evacuate your workplace, then from your BASH, then it can trigger that there's no one already in the workplace, right? Because everybody already come out, because there's a sensor that count who already out, and then who already in, then you will give to the ERT people. Okay, there are 3 people still, they didn't go out, go and search them, So these are the things that you can. Okay, automotive are not new, right? Have been this, but we see there's a new trend of the automotive coming. One is that infotainment in our cars, right? And the other one is ADAS. ADAS is advanced driver assistance system. ADAS. That means you will the LKAS, the lane keeping assistance system. That means, let's say that we are driving and then we fall asleep, and then the car sway to another lane. So the car will prevent it from moving to another lane, will take over from the car. And then there are a lot of companies, including Audi, Cadillac, Mercedes, and so on. They are now experimenting the autonomous driver. That means there's no driver, the car can move. So Audi has demonstrated a car that moved from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, right, without a driver. But of course, there's a driver there, but didn't do anything, just to stand by, just in case. So when they interview the driver says it's very awkward because you are there and you cannot control the car. And the accuracy of that car is 2 centimeters. The accuracy, as close as 2 centimeters. Even human being, right? Most of the people can't drive to that accurate of 2 centimeters. But with this advanced technology and so on, the car can. So you just imagine one day, right, when you are at your workplace, and then your children, come back and want to go to tuition. Then you send your car to your children to send to the tuition and then take the car back. Or when you arrive at your workplace, then you come out from the car, then the car will just go to the parking. Say go park. The car will go to the parking.
Whether this kind of technology, we use a lot of sensors.
Yes.
What happens, the sensor is faulty, and then you go to second one.
Good question. That's why in automotive technology, if you have an automotive customer, the customers are very demanding. The automotive customers are very demanding, and they seldom want to change one. When you want to change your device or any of your materials, you need to get approval from them. You need to do qualifications and so on, because the reliability is very, very stringent, because this is in fact the safety, right? That's why when you have automotive customers, it's very difficult to change, to ask them to change. They do not want to change. If it works, you keep, using it. They do not want to change. Even you want to change to make it better also, they will still ask you to maintain because of that. They have done a lot of tests to make sure that is the safety aspect, right? Because if not, they can be sued. If something happens. Right? So interesting that we see this technology. So you can make a research on this. What are the gaps, to implement on automotive and the autonomous driving, and what are the opportunities? Right? Our challenge here is all the motorcycle. Right? Initially, company like Altera and so on, the challenge initially was in terms of the sensor, because for the sensor to differentiate, because let's say that you are borrowing a car or a truck, and then suddenly plastic or paper drop from the truck, would the car avoid that material or not? If we are the driver, if we see a newspaper, we will not avoid, right? We just go through. But the sensor have to decide whether to stop or avoid, right? Or go through. So with the lasers and so on, so it help now. So that's why now the cars can do this. So I think we have seen some cars that can do the auto parking already, right? So later on you can see that the car can park. And then the beauty of this parking, you can just send the car to the park, because the parking slot you don't need it bigger, right? Because no one come out from the car, right? So you can make the parking slot smaller, so you can put more cars on the parking slot. It helps on that, right? And then when you come out from the work, then you call your car, your car come, and then you just jump into the car and see that side. So these are the so in terms of the electronic vehicle, the powertrain, the hybrid, and so on, so it's all coming. So the vehicle cost in the around 10 years ago, you can see the electronic component only 50% of the vehicle cost 10 years ago. But now, the hybrid, you can see that close to half of the cost are the electronic component. And then in future, with the electric vehicle or the hybrid electric vehicle, 80%, yeah, you can see that Tesla. Yeah, so 80% are all electronics. So what's driving this electronic growth in the automotive? One is the consumer demand, because there's the consumer need. You just imagine that when you go into your car, the car will recognize you without doing anything. Maybe you have some device with you, some ID or what, you know. You jump into your car, then your car recognize you. They set your phone on and so on, your Bluetooth with your speakers and so on. Right? When the car driving, so it keep you in the lane. It knows that you are going home, and then if you divert, then say that okay, it will send you a signal that you know that it's not your house, you are going somewhere else. Are you sure you want to go somewhere else? You know, those kind of things. Again? Yeah. And also maybe like the waste. You know, it will show you that okay, avoid this road because the traffic is very bad. You know, take this road without having to turn on the waste. The car will be communicating to you. Another one is the safety, of course. There's 1.2 million road authority here. This is the US market. And 90% cost crime. I think in Malaysia maybe more 100%. And of course, the government moving into more, asking for more efficiency from the government. So there's a perspective of this advanced driver assistance system. The vision is to have the accident-free driving. And look at these are the last year information in terms of the world, 90 over million vehicles being produced from this top. These are the top. Unfortunately, Proton is not top. So these are the things that I want to share in terms of IoT and in terms of automotive. That you can see that there's emerging opportunities that you can do research on, and what are the gaps, you know, what are the opportunities that you see you can make recommendation and so on. Maybe from this, from your research, because there are students that make research and so on, can become a business plan. Right? Maybe one of your research can become a business plan that the local people that will find it interesting and can make can commercialize.
ஒரு 14 வயசு பிள்ளை வந்து
Any question?
பப்ளிக்
questions? Any questions?
Yes.
So when do you think that our society, like this region, are ready for the IoT? Like how far do you foresee?
MIDA already said there's some councils in MIDA with the industry people are doing the IoT. They are looking at the IoT and so on. There are some companies in Penang inside that council in IoT. There's a semiconductor, there's the IC design, IoT and so on. It's very, very active. In fact, CRES also have this IoT and many companies have this IoT. They are working on this because if we are behind, then other countries, will overtake us and lose this opportunity, right?
Doctor, how would you see that Malaysia encounters all those challenges that to be confronted by the IoT users? Like for example, security will be one of the essential issue, and another thing would be the infrastructure of Malaysia. For example, the internet, the speed, the consistency. So how would these things to be handled if, let's say, the real IoT to be implemented in Malaysia?
Of course, you touch a good point in terms of security is very important because of the data and so on. That's why it is the data protection, the government passing the law and so on is to protect all these things because it's very, very important that all this information, we kept the security aspect lah. And also in terms of the Malaysia is one of the country that have a highest penetration in terms of broadband also, right? But of course, some part of the rural area and so on, they don't have that, right? Because of the expensive, and then the population of the Malaysia also not that big. But unfortunately, the cost of the broadband as compared to other countries, we are still a bit higher. That's why when we have many more players, when we open the market, competition is good because with competition, more players will come in and then you will compete. Then when they compete, then the consumer will benefit from that. So Malaysia is still a small company. We are still not yet ready to open up our market because the government wants to protect the local industry. If not, the local industry will not be able to compete. Even with the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, some people are complaining and so on, right? So the government is trying to do their very best in terms of looking at the overall to see that we are a trading nation, right? We need this globalization. We cannot be left behind. If we left behind, then we are out from this race. So we need, whether we like it or not, we need to be inside that group. So we be inside that group. There's advantage and disadvantage to us. So our SME especially need to come out. That's why we even have the SME Corp trying to help our SME and so on. And then the government also invest with the multinational. Invest means that ask the multinational to the grant to help together with the SMEs. That means, for example, CRES, you need to work with a local company in order to eligible to the CRES grant. This is all to help the SME. So the government are doing a lot of things. So its opportunity is on us. Whether we want to do it or not, right? But since our unemployment rate is not that high, so people tend to want to work with the employer. They do not want to be entrepreneur because the risk, of it is very high. Because to get a loan from the bank is also difficult and so on. They want the records. You have a good track record and so on. So it's a chicken and egg, story. So there's a lot of challenges that we are facing. And then Khazanah recently, in order to encourage more of the entrepreneur, they have this program called the Cornerstone. I'm not sure whether you heard about this Cornerstone, where if you have some good idea, you can talk to Khazanah. And then let's say that you need, I think they have a fund of 10 million ringgit or what, but you will fund maybe 500,000 only, right? Provided that you can, say for example that you have a good idea, and then you sell your idea. You go in and you preach your idea, you say that you want to do this and you need this kind of investment. As long that a person willing to invest with you, an angel investor willing to invest with you, Khazanah will match that investment up to 500,000. Let's say that you need 500,000 ringgit, for example, to start, your business. And then you have a friend that believe in you, that know that you have a very good project, and you need 500,000, and your friend say, okay, I invest 250,000, and Khazanah will match that 250,000. Right?
Let's top up the same amount.
Yes, yeah, it's 1:1. Right? So that's what the government is doing to help to have this open market. So it's very interesting. If you want to know more, you can talk to Khazanah Corridor Utara. Right? They can tell you more about this. Their director is Hamdan. Is the director. No, it's not investment bank. It's Khazanah. Yeah, Khazanah. Khazanah is a Malaysian government investment house. They have a office. I'm not sure whether they any move or not. Previously the office at the GPF. Yeah, at that building. Yes.
What defines
that
it?
building.
Fund is
Northern Corridor. Yeah, with Northern Corridor. But I heard that they are moving to the Victoria Street. There, there's a heritage site near the Waikiki. They are visiting there. Yeah, I'm not sure whether that building is still or not, but they are going to move there. Yeah.